The anime begins with a soccer match in the initial stage of the middle school soccer tournament in Ehime Prefecture. Ashito Aoi, an offensive player, is highlighted in action. He performs exceptionally, scoring 3 goals in the latter half, much to the surprise of both players and onlookers. Ashito's old teammate from primary school, Nakamura, who is now the goalkeeper for the opposing team, feels the pressure of Ashito's performance. Nakamura attempts to unsettle Ashito by teasing him about his game. Upon hearing Nakamura's remarks, Ashito becomes emotional and confronts him physically, causing Nakamura to fall. As a result, Ashito is shown a red card and is forced to leave the game, giving the opposing team an advantage. In the end, Ashito's team loses the match. After the loss, Coach Kijima delivers upsetting news to Ashito that a prestigious high school, which had shown interest in offering him a scholarship, has withdrawn their offer due to his disruptive behavior during the match. Ashito, feeling shocked and disheartened, heads to Ehime Beach to clear his mind. While jogging, Ashito comes across Fukuda Tatsuya, who had been waiting for him. However, Ashito, worn out from his run, collapses upon meeting Fukuda. Acting swiftly, Fukuda ensures Ashito's safety by tacking him to a more secure spot. Upon walking up, Ashito watches Fukuda demonstrate impressive soccer skills on the beach, displaying flawless kicking and shooting techniques that amaze him. Impressed, Fukuda invites Ashito closer, offering to share some of his techniques with him. Shortly after, Fukuda draws several circles on the sandy beach and instructs Ashito to control the ball within them. Despite practicing until evening, Ashito struggles to grasp the technique, causing Fukuda to question whether Ashito's performance and teamwork in the previous match were merely accidental. However, Ashito refuses to accept this evaluation and explains how his team's strategies had been executed during the game. Meanwhile, Noriko Aoi, Ashito's mother, and his elder brother, Shun Aoi, became increasingly worried when Ashito didn't return home by evening. Shun contacted Ashito's friends in an effort to find his younger brother. Upon discovering that Ashito hadn't come home yet, his teammates joined the search, realizing he had been missing since the morning game. As Noriko prepared to search for her son, Nakamura arrived with his parents to apologize to Ashito's family for his disrespectful behavior towards Ashito and his family during the morning game, adding to Ashito's frustration and leading to his dismissal. The next morning, Fukuda, who had slept on the beach, noticed Ashito, who had successfully mastered the technique after practicing tirelessly all night. Impressed by Ashito's determination, Fukuda revealed himself as a junior team manager for the Tokyo City Esperion Football Club. He offered Ashito an opportunity to participate in the upcoming youth player selection event at the club's headquarters in Tokyo, scheduled to occur in 10 days. Overjoyed at the chance, Ashito hurried home to share the news with his mother and brother. However, their financial limitations prevented Ashito from pursuing his dream of attending the Tokyo event, as it required relocating to Tokyo, which was far from their current home. Once, as Ashito walked home from school with his elder brother, Shun disclosed that Fukuda was a well-known Japanese footballer who had achieved success in the Spanish league. Currently, Fukuda is involved in coaching young players for the Tokyo football team. Showing his support for Ashito's ambitions, Shun offers him some money and encourages his younger brother to chase his dream of becoming a professional footballer in Tokyo. Excited by the opportunity, Ashito remembers Fukuda's promise to train him to excel in the world of professional football. A few days later, Ashito arrives at the Tokyo City Esperion Football Club to take part in the junior player selection event. Overwhelmed by the splendor and modern facilities of the club, he is filled with awe. While exploring the football club field, Ashito accidentally collides with a girl named Hana, who turns out to be Fukuda's younger sister and works as a staff member at the club. Familiar with Ashito through her brother, Hana briefs him on the selection process he will undergo. When Fukuda arrives, all selected participants gather, and the selection begins with the players being divided into 2 teams to evaluate their football skills. Ashito finds himself on the white team, alongside lesser-known young players like Isaku Otomo and Kaneda Akinori. Meanwhile, the opposing team, known as the red team, was comprised of well-known young talents like Soichiro Tachibana, recognized as the top player in the recent Kanto football tournament. Seeing the red team's roster filled with acclaimed players, Otomo felt uneasy about the white team's chances. On the other hand, Ashito seemed genuinely thrilled at the opportunity to compete against such formidable opponents. Shortly afterward, the match began, and as anticipated, the red team quickly took control. In the opening minutes, Tachibana scored a goal, further unsettling the already chaotic white team. On the sidelines, coaches started evaluating the players, noting that Ashito didn't display any outstanding abilities. Meanwhile, on the field, Ashito realized that the lack of teamwork among the white team players was hindering their competitiveness against the red team. Determined to make a difference, he began observing each player's positioning to gain control of the ball from the opponents. Currently, Ashito is dribbling and maintaining possession in his team's defensive zone. Some coaches on the sidelines believed his efforts were ineffective, prompting one coach to remove his name from the participant list. Despite this, Fukuda remained enthusiastic, eager to witness Ashito's performance unfold. It quickly became evident that Ashito's strategy involved intentionally keeping possession of the ball in the defensive area to lure the opposing team's defenders forward, thereby creating space for his teammates to exploit. As the opposing defenders pushed up the field, Ashito quickly passed the ball into a critical area, enabling Kaneda to receive it and score a goal in the closing minutes of the match. After the initial selection phase, the coaches gathered to discuss which participants would advance to the next stage. However, many of the coaches from the Tokyo City Esperion Football Club were undecided about Ashito's fate. Sensing the need for a midfielder, Fukuda urged the coaches to keep Ashito. Meanwhile, the selected participants took a break and enjoyed lunch provided by the club. Unlike his peers, who were too nervous to eat, Ashito appeared calm and managed to finish his meal. After the meeting, all the participants gathered on the field to await the results of the first selection round. The names of the 11 players who made it through were announced, including Otomo, Kaneda, and Ashito. Ashito felt overjoyed and immediately called Shun to share the good news before the start of the second selection round. In this stage, those who passed would compete as part of a team. Ashito took the lead in starting conversations with his teammates, aiming to build camaraderie and teamwork. Despite initial hesitation from some teammates, Ashito's positive demeanor eventually united them, and they exchanged stories while waiting for their opponents. Watching from the sidelines, the coaches suspected Ashito and his teammates were discussing game strategies. Shortly after, the Tokyo City Esperion youth team emerged as opponents in the second selection round. Some participants seemed less confident upon hearing about their formidable opponents. However, Ashito remained unfazed and even more enthusiastic, unaffected by the reputation of the opposing team. This reignited the enthusiasm of other participants to compete and strive for victory. Observing Ashito's high spirits on the sidelines, a player from the Youth Esperion team named Nadisa Akutsu requested to play against the selected participants. Akutsu appeared displeased with Ashito's attitude, interpreting it as overly confident, particularly Ashito's assertion that they could defeat the Youth Esperion team. As the match began, the Youth Esperion team deliberately eased their defensive efforts, allowing the selection team to launch attacks. Despite numerous attempts, the selection team struggled to break through the opposing defense, failing to score a goal in the first half. During the break before the next round, it seemed like the Youth Esperion team was exchanging signals, possibly discussing their strategies for the upcoming half. As the second half began, the selection team was caught off guard by this tactic. The Youth Esperion players showcased a flawless game, displaying solid defensive positions and precise passing accuracy, allowing their forwards to easily breach the selection team's defense. As the Youth Esperion team launched their second attack, Ashito noticed his team's lackluster response. Taking matters into his own hands, he intercepted the ball, though it led to him needing treatment on the sideline. Upon returning to the field, Akutsu approached Ashito, mocking not only his football skills but also the abilities of all the selection team players. This only fueled Ashito's determination to perform his best on the field. Despite Akutsu's attempts to injure him during their duels for the ball, causing Ashito pain, his resolve remained unshaken, refusing to give in to the Youth Esperion team. As the intensity of the match increased, Fukuda intervened and revealed that the Youth Esperion players were intentionally not playing in their true positions. Upon learning this, the confidence of the selection team's players plummeted, as they felt they had little chance of winning the match. Ashito was reminded of the sacrifices his mother and older brother had made to support him in participating in the selection, reigniting his excitement. When the selection team was awarded a free kick due to a foul by the Youth Esperion team, they found renewed determination to attack. Despite Otomo's free kick being blocked by Akutsu, Ashito seized the opportunity, dispossessing Nakano and starting a dribble to draw opposing players towards him, before passing the ball to Tachibana on the right flank. With Tachibana now in possession, he passes to Otomo, who is ready to take a shot at goal. However, Akutsu manages to save the shot. Anticipating the direction of the ball, Ashito quickly retrieves it and scores a goal. Fukuda watches from the sidelines, impressed by Ashito's resourcefulness in the game. After the selection process, an interview session is held to gather the perspectives of each participant on their match against the Youth Esperion team. During Ashito's interview, the coaches inquire about his actions that led to scoring goals in the previous game. Although he cannot recall specific details, Ashito explains that he was able to anticipate Otomo's movements and positioned himself on the wing, deciding to pass to Takebana, who subsequently set up Otomo for the goal. Meanwhile, Ashito positioned himself in the center area, prepared to take advantage of any opportunity if Otomo's kick was blocked by the opponent. As the interview came to a close, Ashito made sure to express his appreciation to Fukuda for giving him the opportunity to participate in the selection. Despite the possibility of not succeeding this time, he remained steadfast in his determination to pursue a career as a professional football player. Upon returning to Ehime, Ashito shared his experiences with his friends, causing envy when they discovered he had received a letter from Hana containing a daily food menu for him. Shortly afterward, Noriko stumbled upon Ashito spending time on the beach with his friends and presented him with a letter from the Tokyo City Esperion Football Club confirming his selection. Thrilled by the news, Ashito and his friends celebrated, though Noriko struggled to come to terms with her son's departure to pursue his football dreams. Seeing his mother's hesitation, Ashito contemplated giving up his dream. Thankfully, both Hana and Shun offered unwavering encouragement and support, prompting him to have a discussion about his aspirations with his mother to ensure her happiness. Moved by her son's determination, Noriko gives Ashito permission to join the football club in Tokyo and even prepares various essentials for his journey. Before heading to Tokyo, Ashito says goodbye to his friends at a gathering, capturing moments through photographs as he embarks on his journey toward a professional football career. Upon reaching the Esperion building, Ashito confidently enters and encounters Tachibana and Otomo, who had also successfully passed the Youth Esperion team selection. Later that night, Ashito finds himself in the dormitory, where he meets Motoki Yuma and Junmarchus Asari, both players who had previously participated in the group selection match. As they greet and converse, it becomes apparent that they are the same age as Ashito, but had joined the Youth Esperion team through the promotion route. The dormitory caretaker informs Ashito and his companions that one more person has been accepted and will be Ashito's roommate. However, since the roommate had not arrived by evening, the caretaker leaves the team uniform for Ashito to pass on. As they head to their room, Ashito and the others are impressed by the dormitory facilities designed to support their development as football athletes. The next morning, following the new group photo session, Ashito joined Tachibana's roommate, Kurata Kenpei, and other players who had entered through the promotion route. During the photo session, there was a noticeable division between the promotion route players, who appear to have a more privileged status compared to those selected through the regular selection process. Shortly after, all the accepted players and their parents gathered for a meeting to meet the coaching staff of the Youth Esperion football team. The coaches assigned to train the players included Tsukishima Aki, a former player from the previous Youth Esperion team, and Benzen Daigo, responsible for goalkeeper training. Additionally, Date Nazumi served as the head coach for the B Youth Esperion team, while Fukuda took on the role of team manager, overseeing the 18 players in the club. During the meeting, a new player named Tagashi KG was introduced, who would later become Ashito's roommate. There was a sense of surprise among the attendees due to Tagashi KG's reputation for his delinquent behavior. Subsequently, Ashito introduced himself while presenting the team uniform to Tagashi. As the meeting wrapped up, Fukuda announced that the players needed to get ready for an internal match. However, Ashito decided to take a moment outside the field to clear his mind before joining the match. Noticing Ashito sitting outside the field, Tachibana urged him to quickly join the other players warming up before the game started. Meanwhile, in the coach's room, Date expressed doubts about Ashito's current skill level, suggesting that he might end up in the B team for 3 years. Date even went as far as labeling Ashito as Fukuda's initial mistake in player selection. However, Hana, who happened to be present, disagreed with Date's assessment. She argued that she believed in Ashito's potential for rapid improvement, and reminded Date not to criticize Ashito in her presence, as she is a dedicated fan of his. Meanwhile, Ashito overheard the conversation while waiting for the match outside the coach's room. This fueled his determination to showcase his best abilities. Encouraged by Hana's unwavering support, Ashito became even more enthusiastic about training harder and demonstrating his skills within the youth Esperion team. Some time later, the match among the team members began. Now part of the yellow team, Ashito worked hard to showcase his skills and win possession of the ball. Despite facing initial difficulties, Ashito eventually succeeded in intercepting the ball and dribbling into the opposing team's defensive area. He then passed it to a teammate before receiving the ball back and scoring a goal. This first goal boosted Ashito's confidence, and his teammates started relying on him for several passes. However, Ashito's frequent mistakes made it difficult for him to keep up with the team's pace, resulting in challenges in regaining possession of the ball. According to Coach Date's perspective, Ashito's reliance solely on intuition hindered his progression to a professional level, as he struggled to synchronize with his team's gameplay. Nevertheless, Hana continued to believe in Ashito's potential to develop into a skilled football player. After the match, Ashito recognized his weaknesses in football, leaving him frustrated and seeking solitude. Unexpectedly, Akutsu appeared and mocked Ashito's abilities, even questioning the value of his parents' investment in his football academy education. Determined to improve, Ashito sought guidance from Coach Date to enhance his football skills. Date suggested focusing on mastering fundamental techniques such as ball control, passing, and shooting. Shortly after receiving advice from his coach, Ashito diligently practiced alone every night after regular training sessions ended. Hana, who witnessed Ashito's determination, was deeply impressed by his persistence despite facing criticism from others. Accompanied by Hana, Unri Kaito, the daughter of the main sponsor of the Esperion team, observed Ashito's practice and commented on Hana's admiration for him, noting the similarity of his playing style to that of Fukuda's. Meanwhile, Tachibana and Otomo, aware of Ashito's late-night practice sessions, decided to join him and offer their support. Additionally, Tagashi volunteered to help Ashito improve his football skills. The following day during the regular training session, Ashito appeared to be making progress, showing signs of keeping up with his friend's gameplay after the nighttime practice sessions. His improved performance surprised both his teammates and Coach Date, indicating his rapid development as a player. The next day, both the Youth Esperion A and B teams gathered for a combined training session. Fukuda instructed the players to alternate between playing with 21 and 11 players. In the first match, Team A, comprising 21 players, faced off against 11 players from Team B. However, Team B seemed disoriented during the match. Even Tagashi, known for his football skills, remained quiet and struggled to put up significant resistance. As the teams switched positions, with Team B now playing with 21 players while Team A played with only 11, Team B continued to find it difficult to break through the opponent's defense as Team A left no openings for them. Surprisingly, despite having fewer players, Team A managed to score a goal, dampening the spirits of Team B's players. Nevertheless, Ashito tried to boost his teammates' morale and encouraged them to keep playing with determination. Responding to Ashito's encouragement, Asari advanced to support him as he dribbled the ball. However, when Kurata instructed Ashito to pass to Asari, Ashito mistakenly passed to Kurata instead, resulting in the opposing team gaining possession. After the match, Ashito's teammates seemed irritated, criticizing his lack of understanding in basic team coordination. Even Coach Date urged Ashito to reflect on his mistake, leaving his two teammates frustrated. As spring break approached, Ashito noticed that all his friends from the academy were returning to their homes one by one. However, he stayed in his room, preoccupied with thoughts about why Kurata and Asari were upset with him the other day. Before long, Hana noticed that Ashito hadn't left his room and invited him to go out for a walk. While they were walking together, they were unexpectedly joined by Otomo, who had seen them and decided to come along. Despite Hana's efforts to show Ashito a good time in downtown Tokyo, he seemed absorbed in his thoughts about the recent incident with his two teammates and expressed a desire to practice to improve his teamwork. After exploring the entertainment center in the city, Hana proposed visiting Tokyo Niosei High School. She praised the school for its affordable tuition fees and flexible learning schedule, which would enable Esperion players to balance their academic studies with their club activities without having to compromise on either. Ashito felt relieved to find a school with reasonable fees, which would alleviate the financial strain on his mother. Despite Hana noticing his diligent practice, she suggested he take occasional breaks. However, Ashito became upset with Hana's suggestion, causing her to leave promptly, hurt by his words. Confused by Hana's abrupt departure, Ashito was approached by Otomo, who felt relieved upon realizing that Ashito and Hana were not dating. On the first day of school, Ashito was surprised to discover that fellow Esperion Youth Club players like Kurata and Asari were also enrolled. Additionally, Otomo and Tagashi became his classmates. Upon learning about an upcoming league match for Team B, Ashito decided to clarify any misunderstandings with Asari and Kurota, arranging to meet them on the front bench to discuss the matter. After Ashito explained himself, Asari became even more upset, interpreting Ashito's goal as solely seeking personal glory as the team's top scorer. He even mocked Ashito's advancement to the next grade as unwarranted. Ashito found Asari's comments deeply frustrating, and the tension nearly escalated into a confrontation in class, much to Otomo's annoyance. Upon arriving home from school, Ashito encountered Date, who informed him that he would have the chance to start in the upcoming match. However, Date cautioned Ashito that if he failed to show his best abilities, he would be benched for 3 months. Later the match began, and Esperion Youth Team B struggled against their opponents from the Sekyo Football Club. Poor coordination among Ashito, Asari, and Kurota up front allowed the opposing team to secure a 3-0 lead in the first half. During halftime in the locker room, senior players voiced their frustration with the new recruits, criticizing them for letting personal issues affect their performance on the field. Before the match resumed, Ashito overheard a conversation between his senior teammates and Asari and Kurota, allowing him to understand their intentions. Consequently, when the second half began, Ashito and his two friends demonstrated excellent teamwork, ultimately scoring goals to equalize for Esperion Youth Team B. Both Kurota and Asari began to acknowledge Ashito's skill and contribution on the field. Despite facing the Sekyo team, which had injured players, the Esperion team's cohesive teamwork enabled them to score a crucial goal in the final minutes, leading them to victory in the match. Meanwhile, Hana, who had reconciled with Ashito, watched from the sidelines with joy upon hearing that Ashito's goal had been dedicated to her. In the evening, the players of the B Youth Esperion team celebrated their victory by dining together at a restaurant, where they watched the first team's match on TV. Ashito was particularly excited to watch the game, especially because his idol, Haruhisa Kuribayashi, a skilled player for the Esperion club in the Japanese Premier League, was playing. Kuribayashi's exceptional passing and game-reading abilities were evident in the match, further inspiring Ashito to aspire to greatness. Henri, recognizing Ashito's admiration for Kuribayashi, advised him to concentrate on enhancing his ability to observe game movements on the field. Later, at the dormitory, the administrator announced that a player from Team B would be elevated to Team A due to an injury sustained by Yosei Tsune during a match against Team Amori. Meanwhile, Hana wandered alone through the city, feeling melancholic after witnessing the bond between Henri and Ashito. She believed that Henri truly comprehended Ashito because of their mutual understanding of football. A week later, as the upcoming matches between the two B teams approached, Coach Fukuda arrived to evaluate who would be promoted from Team B to Team A. With Fukuda's presence, the players of Team B appeared even more determined to demonstrate their skills. As the match commenced, Team B's coordination began to improve. However, Ashito's effort to imitate Kuribayashi's renowned passing style ended up worsening the game, resulting in a draw in the first round. At halftime, Date provided guidance to the players on strategies to overcome the opposing team. In the second half, Ashito followed Date's advice and successfully scored a goal after receiving a pass from Otomo. Observing from the sidelines, Fukuda requested Date to bring Ashito to his office after the match. In the afternoon, Ashito eagerly met with Coach Fukuda. Expressing his wish to be promoted to Team A, however, Fukuda had different plans and informed Ashito that he couldn't join Team A yet. Instead, he instructed Ashito to transition to the fullback position, signaling the end of his aspirations to be an attacker. This decision surprised and frustrated Ashito immensely. Shortly after, Date gathered all the Team B players and revealed that Asari and Kurota would move up to Team A, replacing Yosei Tsune, who was demoted due to injury. Date also disclosed Ashito's new role as a fullback, surprising the entire team with the announcement. It turned out that Fukuda had long planned for Ashito to play as a fullback. He had instructed Date, to ensure that Ashito remained motivated to excel as a footballer, regardless of his position. Meanwhile, upon discovering that Ashito hadn't returned to the dormitory after being assigned as a fullback, Hana hurried to find him. When she found Ashito, Hana encouraged him to maintain his enthusiasm, reminding him of his mother's sacrifices to support his football dreams. She then arranged a call between Ashito and his mother, Noriko. Upon hearing his mother's voice, Ashito gained clarity and started to accept his coach's decision, committing to becoming the best fullback he could be, despite his longing to play as an attacker. To boost his determination, Ashito sought support from his teammates, including Akutsu, to assist him in his new role as a fullback. The next day, Ashito began playing in his new position as a fullback against Team A. However, he found it challenging to adapt to the role, frequently making mistakes that drew criticism from Tsukishima, the center back. Ashito's errors often created openings for the opposing team to exploit, particularly Akutsu from Team A, who took advantage of these opportunities to attack Team B's defense. Feeling out of place in his new role, Ashito struggled to maintain concentration on the field. However, seeing his teammates' determination to fend off the opposing team's attacks motivated him to refocus and anticipate the players' movements more effectively. Using this newfound skill, he successfully intercepted the ball during a corner kick from the opponent. As the match ended and Ashito remained disheartened on the sidelines, Tsukishima offered consolation, recognizing Ashito's ability to read the game and advising him to study Kiribayashi's playing style. Upon hearing Tsukishima's advice, Ashito devoted his evenings to studying Kiribayashi's techniques. Meanwhile, Unri questioned Fukuda's decision to place Ashito as a fullback, confiding in Taogasi and Yuma, and expressing her belief that Ashito would be better suited as an attacking midfielder than as a fullback. Unri doubted Ashito's ability to perceive all the players' movements on the field, but Taogasi disagreed, acknowledging Ashito's sharp observational skills. He explained that Fukuda intended to nurture Ashito's talents by placing him in defense, aiming to develop him into a playmaker. In his dormitory, Ashito dedicated himself to analyzing Kiribayashi's gameplay, even requesting recordings of Kiribayashi's matches from the coaches. Through his study, Ashito discerned Kiribayashi's skill in screening, allowing him to predict opponents' movements and initiate attacks swiftly. During the following day's practice, Ashito attempted to apply Kiribayashi's screening technique on the field. However, his intense focus led to mistakes, causing him to miss passes aimed at him. Disheartened by his errors, Ashito reluctantly passed the ball to Otomo after a failed screening attempt in the final training session. After practice, the coach announced the lineup for the upcoming match, with Ashito placed as a substitute. Despite this, Ashito remained undeterred and concentrated on mastering Kiribayashi's screening technique for future gameplay. Seeing Ashito's dedication to Kiribayashi's technique, Unri suggested incorporating juggling exercises into his routine while maintaining awareness of his surroundings. Ashito embraced this suggestion eagerly, committing to perform these exercises regularly. Meanwhile, Kiribayashi approached Hana to discuss organizing a food menu. Initially hesitant, Hana eventually agreed to Kiribayashi's request after observing the bond between Ashito and Unri, who left together after Ashito's training. In return for her favor, Hana asked Kiribayashi to impart some football techniques to Ashito. Finding her proposal reasonable, Kiribayashi accepted her terms. After a month passed, the youth Aspirian Team B found themselves teetering on the edge of relegation, having endured 4 consecutive defeats that greatly demoralized the players, who recognized their poor performance. Tachibana, the team's forward, took responsibility for the losses as he struggled to score goals. While some senior players proposed reinstating Ashito as the attacking midfielder to address the issue, others opposed this idea, emphasizing the importance of maintaining the current team dynamics. Meanwhile, Ashito diligently hones his screening technique on the field, integrating juggling exercises as suggested by Unri during regular practice sessions with his friends. Despite being a substitute player, Ashito seizes every chance to observe the main player's training sessions, striving to enhance his game reading skills. Tachibana admires Ashito's commitment to training, despite not being in the active lineup. He expresses his aspiration to mirror Ashito's unyielding enthusiasm and determination. Later in the evening, Ashito, Otomo, and Taogasi decide to boost Tachibana's morale by inviting him to Musashino for some food. Initially hesitant due to his sense of disappointment from his lack of achievements at Aspirian, Tachibana declines, but Togashi insists on including him. During their outing, they encounter Nakano, a former participant in the Youth Esperion team selection. As they catch up, they discover that Nakano has joined the Tokyo Musashino Football Club, currently dominating the youth league in Japan. Interestingly, Musashino was Tachibana's previous soccer club before he joined Esperion. Shortly afterward, they run into Kaneda, who also plays on Nakano's team. However, Kaneda appears to hold a grudge against Ashito for not mocking it through the Youth Esperion team selection. He taunts Ashito and proposes a showdown between the Esperion and Musashino clubs, slated to happen soon. The next day, Date unveiled the lineup for the main team. With Yosetsume now recovered and appointed as the team captain, Ashito is set to join the first team as a fullback. However, some senior players doubted Ashito's ability to perform well in this position due to his previous struggles. Before the match, Ashito chose to jog around the field to ease his nerves, with Henri accompanying him on her bike. Despite Henri's repeated calls for him to return to the field as the match was about to begin, Ashito continued jogging. It wasn't until Henri mentioned Hana's presence as a spectator that he returned to the field, determined to impress her with his performance. Back on the field, Ashito faced skepticism from both his teammates and opponents regarding his capabilities as a fullback, considering his past challenges in that role. However, driven to prove himself, Ashito aimed to show significant improvement. Encouraged by Hana, Ashito concentrated on utilizing his skills to identify open spaces on the field, allowing him to guide Otomo and intercept opponents. However, he made a mistake on his second attempt by leaving his position, which frustrated Takezima, the center back. Recognizing his mistake, Date offered guidance to Ashito, advising him to rely on his teammates when initiating plays. Taking this advice seriously, Ashito began implementing it, demonstrating better control over the game. Yoshitsune, observing Ashito's evolution into a playmaker from the defensive position, became even more excited. This excitement paid off when Yoshitsune, working together with Togashi, successfully maneuvered past the opposing team's defenders and scored a goal, giving Esperion Youth Team B a 1-0 lead. At halftime, Ashito expressed his admiration for Yoshitsune's strategic play and his desire to replicate it by keying through the opponent's defense. However, Yoshitsune praised Ashito's unique style and encouraged him to stay true to himself, recognizing similarities to Kiribayashi in his gameplay. As the second half began, the coaches reinforced the game plan, emphasizing strategies to counter moves aimed at limiting Yoshitsune's involvement. Henri, who had a profound understanding of football, shared similar thoughts with Hana. On the field, Togashi informed Ashito that he would take on the role of striker due to Yoshitsune's limited opportunities in the forward position. As anticipated, the opposing team focused on Yoshitsune, causing some confusion for Otomo when passing to the forwards. Despite this, Ashito felt more resolute after Yoshitsune's earlier praise and took charge defensively while also seeking chances to launch offensive plays. Unfortunately, a miscommunication between Togashi and Takezima led to a counterattack by the opponents. Ashito stepped in, urging them to communicate better to avoid such errors and stressing the importance of winning the match to avoid elimination from the Premier League. At the same time, Isiki suffered a leg injury, leading to his substitution by a player wearing jersey number 15. After the opposing team scored, Date adjusted the team's strategy by moving Shimizu from attacker to full-back and positioning Ashito and Togashi as wingbacks. This change allowed them to participate in attacks while still fulfilling defensive duties. Ashito welcomed this adjustment as it gave him the chance to contribute to the attack, although he felt a bit uncertain about the decisions he had to make in his new position. Shortly after, Otomo encouraged Ashito to maintain his position and focus on observing the game. They engaged in a passing game with Yoshitsune, disrupting the opposing team's attempts to regain possession. When an opportunity presented itself, Ashito broke through the opponent's defense and passed to Otomo for a shot on goal. Despite his effort, the goalkeeper managed to save the shot. Using his anticipation skills, Ashito attempted to regain possession. In that moment, Ashito recalled the 4 options Kiribayashi had discussed in an interview. With limited time, he swiftly chose the best option to create a goal-scoring opportunity for his team. Opting to pass to Togashi, who subsequently scored, Ashito helped the Esperion team regain the lead. Ashito's teammates praised his excellent decision-making skills, while Date and Tsukishima, watching from the sidelines, were visibly impressed by his performance. After Esperion scored its second goal, the game intensified as the opposing team continued to counterattack. Despite this, Esperion adopted a defensive strategy while remaining alert for opportunities to counter. As the game progressed, neither team managed to score again, and Esperion emerged victorious. However, Ashito felt dissatisfied with his performance. Despite assisting in the crucial goal, he felt limited on the field due to fatigue from balancing offensive and defensive responsibilities. Date emphasized to Ashito the importance of improving his performance, especially when handling dual roles on the field, assigning him the task of enhancing his game control as homework. Meanwhile, Fukuda, having observed the match, praised Ashito's performance in his debut as a defender and offered guidance to Ashito and his teammates. He mentioned that if Ashito continued to progress in the upcoming match against Musashino team, the strongest opponent, he would consider promoting Ashito to Team A. On the other side of the field, a female reporter named Nanami approached Ashito for an interview, impressed by his skills. However, Hana intervened, expressing her disapproval of other women approaching Ashito without club permission, and insisted that Nanami seek authorization from the club before conducting player interviews. Shortly after, Otomo hurried to inform the coach that Tachibana requested not to participate in the upcoming match against the Musashino team. Tachibana seemed disheartened, feeling he couldn't contribute effectively in the previous game and didn't want to face potential embarrassment against his former club. Meanwhile, feeling envious of Ashito and Hana's bond, Unri decided to give the food she prepared for Ashito to Togasi instead. Togasi was pleasantly surprised by the unexpected gesture. Shortly after, Takezima approached him to discuss their on-field mistakes during the last match. As Ashito, Tachibana, Otomo, and Hana accompanied Nanami to the Musashino team's match venue. Tachibana aimed to analyze their opponent's playing style and reaffirm his choice not to participate in the match. Nanami highlighted Musashino's rapid progress under Sadake's management, turning average players into a formidable team leading the standings. Upon reaching the field, Tachibana encountered Sadake, who was supervising his team's performance. They exchanged greetings, with Tachibana explaining his decision not to compete against Musashino. Upon hearing Tachibana's reasoning, Satake empathized with his challenges in the Esperion team, suggesting that facing difficulties showed Tachibana's dedication to improving his football skills. Feeling regretful for not performing at his best in the Esperion Youth Team B, Tachibana was left feeling disheartened. After Satake left, Ashito admired the Musashino team's coach and looked forward to the match. Shortly after, the match began with the Musashino team employing a determined high-press strategy, making it difficult for their opponents to advance the ball. Despite the strategy's drawbacks, such as leaving defensive gaps, the players increased the tempo of the game, disrupting the opposition's focus and creating several counter-attacking opportunities. Using Kaneda's dribbling skills, the Musashino team scored a goal, taking the lead against their opponents. Ashito and his friends were both impressed and anxious witnessing the outstanding performance of the Musashino team. He recognized that the Esperion team still had many weaknesses compared to their opponents. Watching the Musashino players, Ashito noticed their deep understanding of their roles on the field, which allowed them to effectively pressure their opponents. In contrast, the Esperion team appeared less coordinated, lacking unity in their gameplay. The Musashino team's achievements were credited to Sadake's coaching approach, which encouraged players to take risks and emphasized aggressive pressing to unsettle opponents. Despite its shortcomings, Satake instilled strong mental resilience in his players, enabling them to overcome these obstacles. While deeply engrossed in watching the Musashino team's match, Ashito was surprised when Hana discreetly slipped something into his pocket. Shortly afterward, she bid farewell to Ashito, who wished to have a conversation with her before she departed. Meanwhile, Tachibana had an encounter with his older sister Miyako, who expressed concern about his well-being after he ignored calls from her and her parents. During their discussion, Miyako disclosed that the Musashino team was facing internal strife due to Kaneda's disruptive behavior and lack of respect for his teammates. Nearby, Kaneda was seen involved in a confrontation with his teammates due to his arrogance and disregard for team unity. Seeing Kaneda's actions, Ashito became frustrated and reprimanded him, labeling him as the weakest link on the team. However, Kaneda retaliated by insulting Ashito, leading the Musashino team's captain to intervene and advise Ashito to leave the scene to prevent further conflict. Despite efforts to calm the situation, Kaneda persists in provoking Ashito and his friends, causing Tachibana to almost lose control of his emotions and engage in a physical confrontation. Once again, the captain of the Musashino team intervenes to pacify Tachibana, allowing Ashito and his friends to leave the scene. Following the altercation outside the field building, Ashito remains troubled by Kaneda's words, causing him to miss Hana's call. Annoyed, she kicks Ashito before informing him that she has prepared a dietary plan for Kiribayashi, expressing her aspiration to become a sports nutritionist. Despite Hana's irritation, Ashito calmly agrees to her request, which only seems to aggravate her further, prompting her to storm off, feeling that Ashito is indifferent to her emotions. Left alone, Ashito feels envious that Kiribayashi received the dietary plan from Hana. Otomo attempts to reassure Ashito, who struggles with jealousy toward Kiribayashi. On their way back to the hostel, Mr. Miwako, the caretaker, updates Ashito and the Team B players about the roster changes. Yoshitsune will be moving back to Team A, while Asari and Kuroda will return to Team B. Otomo expresses concerns about the team's cohesion, especially after the recent altercation between Togashi and Takezima. Meanwhile, Nanami shares with Takabana that his former Musashino team teammates hold him in high regard, and were happy to hear about his involvement with the Esperion team. Encouraged by this news, Tachibana expresses his desire to continue playing alongside Ashito and Otomo. Ashito, feeling thankful and excited, welcomes Tachibana back to the team for their upcoming match. At the next team meeting, the Esperion Youth Team B gathers with the coaches to prepare for the tough match against the Musashino team. Despite some internal disagreements, particularly between Togashi and Takezima, Date decides to stick with the current core team without making any changes. After the meeting, Ashito and Otomo take the initiative to approach Togashi to resolve their conflict and ensure it doesn't affect the team's unity in the upcoming match. However, Togashi is hesitant to discuss the issue, citing past experiences with Esperion players as the cause of the dispute. Curious about Togashi's perspective, Ashito and Otomo seek input from Asari and Yuma. Through their conversations, Ashito learns about Togashi's background, including his involvement in a trial for recruiting junior Esperion players. Confident in his abilities, Togashi believes he has what it takes to become a professional footballer, as he can keep up with the academy members of the junior Esperion team. Fukuda, an assistant coach, often praises Togashi's skills and offers him football advice, which leads Kuroda to approach Togashi with the intention of forming a friendship. When Kuroda approached Togashi was surprised, as he had never interacted with players from the junior Esperion team before. However, when Kuroda mentioned Togashi's inclusion in the lineup for a friendly match, Togashi became thrilled, especially after Kuroda suggested they collaborate on the field. Kuroda noted that many Esperion players struggle with teamwork during games as they tend to prioritize their individual performances. During the friendly match, Togashi showcased good performance and followed the on-field instructions diligently. He dribbled the ball and passed it to Kuroda as planned. However, instead of taking a shot, Kuroda unexpectedly passed it back, surprising Togashi. When Togashi asked why Kuroda didn't shoot, he received no answer. The match concluded with the junior Esperion team winning 8-0. After the game, Takezima brought his girlfriends onto the field to celebrate without permission. Togashi attempted to scold him, but Takezima argued that personal matters to be separate from football. Just before leaving, Takezima brought up Togashi's missed opportunity to score, which infuriated him. The next day, participants who successfully made it through the selection trial, including Togashi, decided to leave as they couldn't match the level of play of the Esperion team. They mentioned to Togashi how the junior Esperion players seemed oblivious to their presence on the field. Shortly after, Kuroda and his group arrived, sparking a disagreement. Kuroda explained his ambition to become a successful professional footballer, emphasizing the need to prioritize oneself on the field. Togashi was angered by this statement. In his final trial match, Togashi noticed his teammates' lack of concentration on the field, frequently seeking guidance from the coaches instead. Despite his efforts to encourage them to launch attacks, they remained passive, leaving him to fend for himself. Tensions heightened when Kuroda scored a goal without passing to Togashi, who was open. Expressing his frustration, Togashi pointed out that his teammates seemed more focused on impressing the coaches than winning. Kuroda and the others were taken aback, explaining that their main goal was to become professional players, prioritizing individual success over teamwork. As a result, the conflict between Togashi and the Aspirian players escalated, leading to another confrontation with Takezima, following the recent match at Aspirian's B youth team. After hearing Asari and Yuma's perspectives, Ashito found himself somewhat empathetic towards Togashi's viewpoint. However, he refrained from placing blame on Kurata and the others, recognizing that their primary aim is to hone their football skills to pursue their dreams of becoming professional players. Despite the internal conflicts within the team, Team B resumed their training sessions as planned. However, personal issues among the players hindered their cohesion on the field. Recognizing this, Tachibana took the initiative to organize additional training sessions aimed at improving teamwork and effectively implementing Date strategies during matches. Despite being regarded as the weakest player, Tachibana refuses to give up and is determined to enhance his team's performance against the Musashino team. Inspired by Tachibana's determination, Takezima acknowledges his own shortcomings and commits to intensifying his training efforts. This renewed sense of determination spreads among the players, encouraging them to focus on practicing teamwork diligently to avoid defeat in the upcoming game. A few days later, the highly anticipated match between Aspirian Team B and Musashino Team drew closer. As the warm-up session began, Date and Sadake, who were old acquaintances from their time as players in the J-League, exchanged greetings on the sidelines. During their conversation, Date praised Sadake for his impressive achievement in shaping players with limited abilities into a confident and formidable team. Despite this praise, the Aspirian Youth Team B appeared nervous during the warm-up, feeling intimidated by the Musashino team's presence. However, Ashito remained determined to secure victory, especially after recalling Kaneda's challenge. Meanwhile, Takezima regained his confidence after witnessing Ashito's enthusiasm and inspired his teammates, urging them not to be intimidated by the opposing team. As the warm-up session ended, the players headed to the locker room to prepare for the game. Tsukishima, acting as the assistant coach, tried to ease the tension among the players. Unexpectedly, he entered the locker room with a new short haircut, which caused the players to laugh and lifted the mood. Explaining his haircut as a morale booster, Takezima encouraged his teammates to embrace the excitement of the match. With renewed determination, the players vowed to give their best and emerge victorious. The first half of the match began, with the Musashino team implementing a high-pressure tactic to disrupt Aspirian Youth Team B's possession. However, Aspirian Youth Team B responded with a direct style of play, forcing Musashino's players to focus more on defense. Ashito, directing the team's tactics, made a pass back to Tachibana, who quickly advanced towards the opponent's goal. Although the opposing goalkeeper managed to block the ball, Aspirian Youth Team B created several scoring opportunities with their strategy. Despite its simplicity, this approach proved effective due to thorough preparation, especially against the Musashino team. While observing Aspirian Youth Team B's performance, Kaneda approached Ashito, expressing doubts about the effectiveness of their strategy, particularly regarding Tachibana's inability to capitalize on the passes. Meanwhile, Satake began giving new instructions to Momoto, the captain of the Musashino team, in an attempt to change their playing style. Adjusting to the new tactic, the Musashino team changed their style of play, anticipating the ball's path to launch counterattacks. Kaneda gained possession and advanced into Aspirian Youth Team B's defensive area. With few options available, Ashito executed a strong tackle on Kaneda, resulting in a yellow card being issued to him. Shortly afterward, the Musashino team shifted their high-pressure strategy to focus on slowing down the opponent's movements rather than actively pursuing the ball. This change aimed to close the gaps that were previously exploited by the opposing players, thus reducing their chances of scoring. Under Mamoto's guidance, who effectively relayed Sadake's tactics to the team, the Musashino team began to dominate the game against Aspirian Youth Team B. Mamoto's role as the orchestrator involved prioritizing communication of strategies over individual goal-scoring attempts, ensuring that his teammates understood their roles effectively. During a free kick, Mamoto was seen actively directing his teammates instead of solely focusing on scoring. His instructions encouraged Musashino's players to maintain a slower pace, anticipating mistakes from Aspirian Youth Team B that could benefit Musashino. Henri, watching from the sidelines, praised Mamoto's effectiveness as both captain and playmaker, noting his skill in leading his team to execute strategies efficiently during matches. In contrast, Satake highlighted the absence of a playmaker like Mamoto in Esperian's Team B, pointing out a lack of teamwork. This was evident when Kuroda attempted a short pass to Ashito. Luckily, Kaneda seized control of the ball and aimed a powerful shot at the goal, despite Takezima's efforts to block him. The ball hit the goalpost, giving Kaneda another chance for a shot. However, Tagashi intervened, preventing Musashino team from scoring their first goal. Meanwhile, the players of Esperian Youth Team B were surprised by Kaneda's relentless attacks. Recognizing him as a major threat to their goal, Ashito offered to mark him to disrupt his movements. However, feeling responsible for the earlier passing mistake, Kuroda insisted on tag-keying on the marking duty, suggesting that a newcomer like Ashito might struggle to keep up with Kaneda's style of play. Shortly afterward, Kaneda regained possession of the ball and directed it towards Esperian Youth Team B's defensive area. Leveraging his experience, Kuroda, tasked with marking him, anticipated the ball's path and successfully intercepted it from Kaneda. With Kuroda's interception, Esperian Youth Team B adjusted their strategy by employing short passing tactics to maintain possession for longer periods. Recognizing the change in the opposing team's approach, Kaneda quickly tried to regain possession from Kuroda, just as the ball was about to go out of play. Seizing control of the ball, Kuroda swiftly broke through the left wing of Esperian Youth Team B's defense. Despite Takezima's efforts to block him, Kaneda confidently took a shot towards the corner of the goal. The ball hit the goalpost and bounced back, giving Mamoto the chance to head it into the net, securing a 1-0 victory for the Musashino team over Esperian Team B. After trailing 1-0 against the Musashino team, tensions flared among the Esperian B players as they discussed their strategy on the field. Some players, including Tachibana, argued for sticking with the direct play approach they had used before. One player seemed to blame Tachibana for not scoring a goal during the match. On the other hand, Ashito believed that Esperian Youth Team B lacked an experienced player to act as a playmaker, making them vulnerable against the Musashino team, which had a skilled playmaker capable of rallying their team. Sensing the discord among his players, Date, positioned on the sidelines, quickly signaled for Ashito, Asari, and Kuroda to come forward and adjust the player formation. By deploying two center-backs in the defensive zone and pushing both wing-backs and a defensive midfielder into the midfield, Date aimed to offer more passing options for the players. At the same time, Date emphasized the need for the players to stick to the direct play strategy. The spectators were surprised by Team B Esperian's new formation, but Unri believed it was a wise choice to give the Esperian B team more chances to score goals. Meanwhile on the field, Tachibana regained his excitement to give his best performance after seeing his teammates' determined efforts to win. Remembering Date's decision to include him in Team B's starting lineup, Tachibana was eager to show his coach his ability to score goals in the upcoming match. When the opposing team launched a counterattack, Tachibana eagerly took control of the ball and dribbled it into the opponent's defensive area. With determination, Tachibana maneuvered past the two Musashino players, blocking him, and then sent a long pass to Otomo on the sidelines. The ball traveled quickly, seeming out of reach for Otomo. However, Ashito, anticipating the ball's path, swiftly intercepted it before it went out of bounds and provided a cross that was skillfully blocked by the Musashino team's goalkeeper. Thankfully, Tachibana noticed a loose ball near the goal and took advantage of the opportunity to score, tying the match 1-1 against Musashino. As a result, fans of Esperian Youth Team B cheered loudly, and Date, watching from the sidelines, gave Tachibana a thumbs up to acknowledge his efforts. Ashito and his teammates celebrated their success in equalizing the match, showing happiness at their achievement. Meanwhile, the Musashino team seemed visibly annoyed by their opponent's success. After the equalizing goal, Tachibana's performance surged, demonstrating impressive individual skills. Dodging several Musashino players trying to stop him, he managed to pass the ball to Ashito. Ashito took advantage of the opportunity, quickly aiming at the opponent's goal after receiving the pass from Tachibana. However, the referee disallowed the goal because Ashito was in an offside position. Disappointed, Ashito expressed his frustration, arguing with the referee's decision until Otomo stepped in to calm him down. Meanwhile, Tachibana, noticing Ashito's disappointment, tried to encourage him, telling him not to lose hope because there was still plenty of time left in the match. Ashito realized how important scoring goals was to him. Despite playing as a wingback, Ashito's striker instincts remained strong, mocking him, feel conflicted between his roles as a defender and a striker in the game. Following this, Ashito used his ability to read the game to direct his teammates, helping them find open spaces on the field. This tactic aimed to position him for the final touch in Esperion Youth Team B's attacks. Acknowledging Ashito's contribution, Satake recognized his crucial role in Esperion Youth Team B's ability to counterattack against the Musashino team. Ashito's skill in predicting player and ball movements significantly boosted their performance. In response to Esperion's improving gameplay, Satake adjusted his team's strategy. Kaneda, understanding these adjustments, was surprised when Satake urged them to employ an aggressive high-press tactic to counter Esperion's attacking strategy. Implementing this new approach, Esperion struggled to break through Musashino's defense due to their offside trap tactics. Watching the game closely, Ashito carefully analyzed the movements of the players and guided his teammates to counter the opposition's strategy. He managed to avoid falling into the offside trap and advanced into Musashino's defensive area after receiving a pass from Tachibana. However, Mamoto, who was marking Ashito, intercepted the ball and initiated a long pass to Kaneda. Taking advantage of his speed and determination, Kaneda outmaneuvered Takishima and Tombasi's defense, securing the second goal for the Musashino team. After Musashino's second goal, the morale at Esperion Youth Team B visibly dropped, causing them to struggle to maintain focus against the opposition's attacks. Even the coordination between Tombasi and Takeshima faltered, resulting in another attempt on goal by Kaneda. Shortly after, Kuroda bravely attempted to block the ball from entering the goal, despite getting injured from colliding with the goalpost. Meanwhile, off the field, Hana and Fukuda observed the match, with Hana expressing concern for Esperion Youth Team B, who were trailing 2-1 against the Musashino team. However, Fukuda remained composed, expecting a potential turnaround in the second half, trusting in Ashito's ability to motivate his team. At the end of the first half, Ashito, feeling concerned, headed to the locker room where Unri offered words of encouragement for the next half. Meanwhile, Fukuda approached Date, suggesting that specific instructions could improve player communication and teamwork, especially among the defenders. Date, accepting Fukuda's advice, embraced the responsibility, encouraged by Fukuda's confidence in Team B. Inside the locker room, the atmosphere among the Esperion Youth Team B players was subdued after their first half defeat. Tension rose when Tsukishima mentioned Kuroda's need for treatment, although the injury wasn't serious. Upon hearing Asari's criticism, Takeshima and Tombasi were singled out for their lack of coordination, which Asari believed led to Kuroda's need to intervene and stop the opposition's attacks. Date, who overheard Asari's comments, entered the room and praised Takeshima and Tombasi for their efforts, recognizing them as the team's top defenders despite their communication issues. Shortly after, Kuroda returned from treatment and expressed his determination to play in the second half, specifically as a center back, to prevent the Musashino team from scoring easily. Tombasi, surprised by Kuroda's change of attitude, began to understand the importance of teamwork, and Date agreed to Kuroda's request. Meanwhile, Ashito encouraged the defenders to communicate effectively to strengthen the team's defense. Date then gave specific instructions to boost the players' confidence. As the halftime break ended, the players started to leave the locker room. As Ashito emerged, Fukuda approached him, advising him to focus on guiding his teammates rather than trying to play as a striker during matches. He stressed the importance of controlling the game and maintaining a solid defense against the opponent's attacks. Ashito, fully embracing Fukuda's guidance, agreed wholeheartedly and proceeded to the field. Upon encountering Hana, he sought her encouragement, receiving assurance that his perseverance could lead Esperion Youth Team B to victory, boosting his spirits. Just before the second half began, Kaneda and his teammates were surprised by the determined attitude of the Esperion Youth Team B players. As the game resumed, particularly among the defenders, Esperion Youth Team B displayed a significantly improved performance. Meanwhile, Tombasi, determined not to let Date down, worked diligently to synchronize his play with Takeshima, aiming to anticipate the ball's movements together. This was evident when Takeshima marked his opponent, prompting Tombasi to quickly intercept the ball and pass it forward. This clear division of responsibilities heightened their focus on thwarting Kaneda's advances and disrupting the opposition's attacking rhythm. Shortly thereafter, a player from the Musashino team suffered a significant injury, resulting in a temporary halt to the match. Upon the match's resumption, Esperion Youth Team B was awarded a fair ball, but Kaneda resorted to deception, seizing the ball and dribbling it towards their defensive area. Despite Kaneda successfully maneuvering past Togashi Ashito, predicting his actions, quickly thwarted his progress by kicking the ball out of bounds. Kaneda was surprised by Ashito's anticipation, leading the referee to issue him a yellow card for unsportsmanlike behavior. As Esperion Youth Team B initiated their attack, Date signaled for Asari and Ashito to move forward and support the offensive push. He aimed to diversify their attacking options to penetrate the opponent's defense. Meanwhile, Ashito, having observed the players' positioning on the field, shifted to the right to avoid Mamoto's marking. Recognizing Ashito's movements, Tachibana strategically positioned himself in an open space on the left side, drawing the attention of the Musashino team players. Seeing this, Asari quickly moved to the center of the opposing team's defense, creating an opportunity for Otomo to score a goal, thus equalizing the score at 2-2. With the second goal, Ashito's confidence surged, enabling him to confidently lead his teammates in dominating the game on the field. His assertiveness during the match took many by surprise. Meanwhile, on the sidelines, Henri and Miyako observed Ashito's leadership skeptically. Henri wondered how he managed to coordinate every player on the team. Additionally, Satake also began to question Ashito's ability to orchestrate attacks alone, leading him to instruct Musashino's players to closely mark Ashito. Fortunately, Ashito realized that he could still control the game's pace by using passes to communicate with his teammates. With unwavering confidence, he requested a pass from one of the senior players on his team and then delivered a precise pass to Asari on the right side. Asari, upon receiving the ball, quickly moved towards the center and passed it back to Ashito. Showing agility, Ashito made a diagonal run to evade several opposing players, blocking his path on the left side of the field, and delivered a cross directly to Otomo. After Otomo missed the scoring opportunity, Ashito seized the rebound, allowing Esperion Youth Team B to take the lead against the Musashino team with a score of 3-2. Hana couldn't help but notice similarities between Ashito's performance and Fukuda's style, while Fukuda himself also seemed impressed by Ashito's gameplay. Following Ashito's goal, several Musashino players began to closely mark him, which created an opening exploited by Tachibana to score another goal with his powerful shot. This fourth goal widened the gap between Esperion Youth Team B and the Musashino team, dampening the latter's hopes of victory. Seeing Ashito's remarkable performance, Kaneda admitted his inability to match Ashito's level. However, Mamoto, unwilling to accept defeat, placed his trust in Kaneda's abilities and instructed him not to fall back to the defense area, but to wait for opportunities for counterattacks. This renewed Kaneda's confidence, and he pledged to give his best for the remainder of the match. Eventually, the match ended with Esperion Youth Team B emerging triumphant over the Musashino team. During the break, Fukuda arrived and announced that Togashi Otomo Kuroda and Ashito were promoted to join Esperion's team due to their outstanding performance in the match against Musashino. Later that night, Otomo and the others were spotted hanging out and sharing jokes in the dormitory, enjoying each other's company. Meanwhile, Ashito sought out Date to express his gratitude for the guidance he had received. Date reminded him not to underestimate the level of play in Team A and encouraged him to continue giving his best effort. Grateful for the advice, Ashito smiled and bid his coach farewell before departing. Instead of returning to the dormitory, Ashito decided to take a solitary walk in the rain, seeking solace and reflecting on his performance in the match against the Musashino team. Amidst the rain, he unexpectedly encountered Hana, who was hastily cycling in the downpour. Upon seeing Ashito, she decided to accompany him. While strolling together, Ashito shared the news of his promotion to Esperion Team A with Hana, who was elated by his success and hugged him spontaneously. However, realizing her sudden action, Hana felt uneasy and tried to create some distance between them. She struggled to understand her feelings for Ashito, which had been occupying her mind. Despite this, Ashito gently encouraged her to stay, and eventually, she agreed to remain by his side. During their conversation, Hana expressed her admiration for her older brother Fukuda, who had achieved success as a professional football player internationally. However, she also felt a sense of sadness about Fukuda's career-ending injury. This led her to worry about Ashito, who possessed similar abilities to Fukuda. However, Ashito, determined not to live in his brother's shadow, asked Hana to support him as Ashito, not just because he resembled Fukuda. He stressed the importance of her support both on and off the field. Grateful for her encouragement, Hana kissed his forehead before departing. In the final scenes of the anime, Ashito is depicted preparing to join Team A's practice session with a determined resolve. He aims to showcase his skills and become a key player for Esperion Team A. So the moral of the story is, if you ever find yourself in the rain, remember to bring along a friend who gives great hugs, because you never know when you might need one.